Hi, this is Rebekah Ricks. I'm here at the Homeschool Connection in Winter Haven, Florida, and this is an episode of The Brew. And a brew is a mixture of people, events, or things that come together to form a more potent whole. And today we're talking about the SAT-ACT debate. And I get asked all the time, which one is easier, which one is better, which one should I do, the SAT or the ACT? Well, really, the question should be, which one is better for you personally? Sometimes the ACT is for some people and sometimes the SAT is. So I'm going to kind of go through them really quickly and talk about how they're the same and how they're different. Now, they redid the SAT, so we have the new SAT, and the new SAT was kind of made to be a copycat of the ACT. Basically, they wanted to change the SAT so the tests were more similar. So now they're more similar than they are different, but there's still a few differences. So the main difference is the SAT does not have a science section. So the science section on the ACT, though, is not super duper duper hard to master. I consider it more of a reading section than a science section. If you are good at reading and discerning information, it's much easier. It really has nothing to do with science or how much you know, but sometimes people take it and they absolutely hate it. So if you're not a great reader and you absolutely hate it on the SAT, then on the ACT, then the SAT is for you. We'll go through this a little bit later in more detail, but the essays are very different. Both tests now have optional essays. It used to be required to take the SAT essay, but now they are both optional. So you don't have to take the essay if you don't want to. Raise your hand if you're not a great writer. My hand is raised. I would never take it. I'm a math person, so the writing section is not my forte. So that would be something that you would have to think about if you were a writer. Now, the big difference is the ACT essay asks you to come up with your own argument and support it. So they're going to give you two opinions, and then you have to pick which one you like and then support it. The new SAT asks you to evaluate something, argument that someone has already written for you. Neither is harder or easier. It's just kind of something you can kind of give your preference. The new SAT for math has fill in the blank answers, okay? It doesn't, you have to write in the answers on some of them. And also the new SAT has a calculator and a non-calculator section. The ACT lets you use the calculator all the way through on the math problems, and all the answers are multiple choice. The new SAT, the without calculator section, really just wants to make sure that you are up on your basics, all on your basics. The last is time. ACT is much, much, much faster, okay? 60 minutes, 60 seconds, bow, for a math. So you have to be able to do a question a minute. For some people, that's insanely fast. But also on the SAT, for some people, it's kind of intimidating not to be that crutch of your calculator. Sometimes that's a disadvantage to a lot of people. So I guess the first question you need to ask yourself is, how mathy are you? I call it mathy. How mathy are you? How much math do you know? So the ACT does have some trig on it. They ask a lot what trig and geometry on the ACT, not necessarily on the SAT. There's a little bit of geometry on the SAT. 1/3 of the ACT's math is going to be geometry. And so if you really struggled with geometry, or you haven't seen it in a while and you can't remember all those rules, sometimes the SAT math is it. SAT is really, really, really focused on algebra. That's their main thing. SAT focuses on algebra. ACT knows a little more. Also, the ACT doesn't give you any formulas at the beginning of the math test, so you need to have them all memorized for the ACT. Where the SAT will give you formulas within the test as you kind of need them. So are you strong in geometry and trig? Then the ACT is for you. Do you prefer algebra problems? SAT's for you. Okay, so that's kind of where you are thinking on that. Then you have to think on the math particularly, how confident are you with without a calculator? How can you think quickly without a calculator? So if you have to have a calculator, even though the ACT is faster, sometimes that's one for you. You're going to find the ACT much easier. Science terminology. How well are you on science? The science section really uses charts and graphs. So if you have a stronger science background, of course the science is going to be a little bit easier, but I don't necessarily consider the science section really sciencey. I think that it's kind of a mix. You can know all of it. So if science is your thing, if it's your thing, then you kind of do have an advantage on the ACT. Now let's talk about the reading section. Are you able to remember details from what you read? The SAT is short, and it gives you shorter reading sections, and it gives you more information to work with. But the sections are usually harder. The SAT will sometimes usually tell you specifically what line they're talking about, but it will, and the ACT sometimes doesn't. But the SAT is almost always taken from works of literature, from a section of classic literature. So it's harder reading, but they do in the questions tell you line 23, you know, this. Like the ACT might just ask something general, like what is the narrator talking about, or what is it narrating state? And the SAT reading are always in chronological order. I know that's kind of weird. Well, the ACT mixes it up, so they try to make it harder. Another thing is the SAT really on their essay wants you to cite evidence. They don't want your opinion. They don't care about your opinion on the SAT essays. They want you to find evidence to support it. Kind of like the same thing on the reading section. It's more, can you show the evidence? Which is it? Again, in the grammar section, let's talk about the English section of the two of them. ACT is really focused on grammar, punctuation, sentence structure. If you come strong, especially if you're from a private school, usually you're strong in the ACT grammar because they do a lot of grammar. Whereas if you don't come from a strong grammar background, then the SAT has more questions about writing style rather than, and the SAT talks a lot about vocabulary, where the ACT doesn't necessarily cover that. So again, you kind of have to go back and forth. Challenging questions. Now, fast. How fast are you? You have to be like ninja fast, like Speedy Gonzalez fast, like so fast, like Roadrunner, you can't see your feet to do the ACT. So they don't expect you to finish the test because it's fast. The English section has 45 minutes and 75 questions. That means you only have 36 seconds a question. And math on the ACT, it's 60 minutes, 60 questions. You got a minute a question. Reading, on the reading section, you have 35 minutes and 40 questions. The same thing with the science, 35 minutes and 40 questions. So we're talking about 50 seconds a question. So you have to quickly discern, figure out, and go. But if you are a fast thinker and you can do those quickly, you have a huge advantage on the ACT being able to get more right. If you're slow and steady, wins the race, the SAT is kind of for you. The no calculator section is 25 minutes and you have 20 questions. So you have a little bit over a minute for each question. On the calculator section, you get 55 minutes and 38 seconds. That means you have a total of almost a minute and a half on each question. Way more time. Same thing with the reading and the writing sections. Reading is 65 minutes and about 52 questions, so that means you get about 75 seconds. Lots and lots more time than trying to do it in less than a minute. So I guess what you really need to do, and you can also see, now this isn't as much, but still there are some private colleges that have a preference between SAT or ACT. There are actually 5 states that use the SAT your senior year as part of their statewide testing. So Connecticut, Delaware, Idaho, Michigan, and New Hampshire require you to take the SAT before you graduate. There are 16 states that use the ACT as part of their statewide testing. In Florida, we use the ACT reading section as an equivalent for our FCAT, not FCAT, for the FCAT's gone, FSA, for FSA, Florida State Assessment, the 10th grade FSA test is equivalent to the ACT reading section. So FSA reading in 10th grade, you have to be able to pass it. Or you have to be able to pass the ACT and get a certain, I believe it's a 19 on it for the ACT for it to pass. But, you know, most people live in Florida, so we don't have it, the SAT or the ACT isn't part of our state curriculum. But if you live in a state that requires you to take the SAT or the ACT to graduate, then you're given a lot more prep. Like those states, you have to score a certain number to be able to graduate from high school. Most people can pass the FSA without having to do that. So really you need to go through and see what your strengths and weakness. Do you have a strength in geometry, trig and geometry? ACT. Can you answer math? Do you have a hard time with math problems without a calculator? ACT. Are you a formula memorizer? You got all your formulas memorized? ACT. Are you comfortable with science terms and science terminology? ACT. Are you good at memorizing details? ACT. Are you great on all your punctuation, capitalization rules? ACT. Do you not mind skipping over questions? Like, because you don't have time to analyze that, then that's the ACT. If you have to answer reading questions in chronological order, then the SAT. If you are good at finding evidence to support your answers, then you need to do the SAT. If you're good with all the different styles of writing and you know the different writing styles, then the SAT is for you. So really, you kind of need to go through and weigh which one you want to do and which one you don't. Which skills are helpful to you to get a better score. And really, here's what people say. Here's what I suggest. 10th grade, go take both tests. See which one you like the best. Then you can go ahead and start prepping for it in 11th grade. All right? So how much, real fast, how much do you prep for the test? Again, how often if we're thinking about an athlete or if you're thinking about a sports team, how much do you practice as a sports team? Well, most high school sports teams meet 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, okay? And then they have games on a few of those days, okay? So you're thinking that including practice and game time, you're putting in 10 hours a week to be excellent at a sport. Now, I'm not naive enough to think that people are going to spend that much time prepping for the ACT or the SAT. But honestly, I've had kids who have scored almost perfect scores, phenomenal, and they actually practice the test. So the way to get better at these tests is just practice them. Practice makes perfect. I suggest 10 to 15 minutes a day. And if you do 10 to 15 minutes a day for 2 to 3 weeks, or a couple months, 4 to 6 weeks, depending on how much you want your score to go up, it will automatically go up by just practicing a few times, 10, 15 minutes a week. So anyway, I guess the final answer is which one is better. It really needs to be which one is better for you and which one you feel more comfortable with. A lot of kids here in Florida, we end up doing ACT because you kind of need that for your 10th grade. You do need to score a certain number to be able to graduate, especially as a private school student. You have to be able to hit a certain number on your ACT to graduate from high school. So that's kind of my answer. My answer to that question is not a real answer. You kind of have to see which one works for you and works best for you. But hopefully that was kind of helpful. We will be doing another video next Monday. We'll also have this Friday morning. We'll have an extra shot of espresso, which will be a little bit of devotional. But I wanted to thank you all for your time and hope you have a great afternoon.